Hi, my name is Amanda, and my topic for today is global warming, and my main claim is that increasing federal funding for climate change research would benefit not only the United States, but also the world. The definition of climate change is it is a long-term change in Earth's overall temperature with massive and permanent ramifications. My 3 points I'm going to talk about are: 1, if we don't invest now, the cost in the future could become dire. 2, without proper research, pollinating animals and insects will become extinct. And 3, if nothing is done about climate change, we could become extinct. My first point of, if we don't invest now, the cost in the future can become dire. So a little bit of background on that. President Donald Trump is trying to he has a budget plan where he's trying to cut the funding for climate change research, which goes to the UN, and he wants to cut that down to 0 by 2018, which can harm us because if we don't start research now and if we don't increase the research now, in the future, we might not be able to even afford to be able to research for climate change because, which can be proven and shown in this quote by Kevin Bullis, a writer for MIT Technology, which states that switching from fossil fuels to low carbon sources of energy will cost $44 trillion between now and 2050, according to a report released by the International Energy Agency. However, the switch to low carbon technologies such as solar power, together with anticipated improvements in efficiency, will bring huge savings from reduced fossil fuel consumption. Continuing to hold off on reducing emissions could increase costs by 40%. This pretty much means that if we don't start research now to find ways to switch to low carbon technologies such as solar power, solar panels, or hybrid cars, etc., the long-term effect can cost higher in the future. Which brings me to my second point. Without proper research, pollinating animals and insects such as bees and hummingbirds will become extinct. Now, bees are going extinct at an alarming rate due to climate change. And if bees go extinct, then so will we, which I will prove now with, according to the globalresearch.org, bees pollinate over $40 billion worth of crops. And according to Earthwatch Institute, warming temperatures could force pollinator species to shift their ranges to higher elevations, which could impact agricultural production, or it could be that changing climate will cause these species to disappear altogether, which means that bees and hummingbirds are either going extinct or they're going to migrate away from these crops. If we have $40 billion worth of crops that are being pollinated because of these bees and hummingbirds, those will cease to exist, or they will just start to become less and less over time, which will lead to my third point of, if nothing is done about climate change, we can go extinct. Because, again, to reiterate, without bees and hummingbirds, we could go extinct due to the lack of crops. In addition to that, with the way climate change is headed, the Arctic could melt. And if the Arctic melts, sea levels would rise by 70 meters. And for those of you who don't know, that is approximately 300 feet. And in comparison, Hollywood is approximately 350 feet above sea level, which means that essentially Hollywood could eventually become an island if the Arctic melts. And Arctic is melting due to CO2 or carbon dioxide emissions, which are in the air and the atmosphere, which are reaching an all-time high today. According to Andrew Friedman, a writer for climatechange.org, the last time there was this much carbon dioxide or CO2 in the Earth's atmosphere, modern humans didn't exist. Global CO2 emissions reached a record high of 35.6 billion tons in 2012. This means that if humans continue to increase the amount of CO2 or carbon dioxide being put into the atmosphere, we can eventually become extinct because it can become unbearable and unable for us to be able to live in. In addition to that, the cost to clean up the CO2 will continue to increase as we continue to put CO2 into the atmosphere. According to the Washington Post, currently costs $36 per ton of carbon dioxide, which means that with the 35.6 billion tons of carbon dioxide we have in the air, it could cost over $1.3 trillion to clean up this carbon dioxide over time, which will just continue to increase as time goes on if we don't start and continue to research now. Which brings me to my conclusion: increasing federal funding for climate change research would benefit not only the United States, but also the world, which I proved with my 3 points of, if we don't invest now, the cost in the future can become dire. Without proper research, pollinating animals and insects such as bees and hummingbirds can become extinct. And if nothing is done about climate change, we can become extinct. Thank you.
Well, the proposition's identified. You've got a preview of the supporting points. It's pretty clear. There's a little bit of controversy on this. The problem that I see is that I don't see the secondary points being as directly connected to the main proposition as you do. Your argument is that increased funding is going to benefit these things, and then your proof is that global climate change is a bad thing. And I'm looking for the step that says increased funding is going to do something about global climate change. It's going to give us a solution. It's going to find ways in which we can diminish it. It's that global climate change is preventable in some way, shape, or form. And I didn't get any information like that. I just got the usual agenda of what the problems are going to be, that we're going to have problems with the pollinated plants, that we're going to have ice caps melting, and we're going to, Hollywood's going to become an island, which might not be bad. That'd increase the property value there in Hollywood. That'd be sort of nice. And more places to park your yachts, I guess. I don't know. But the idea that our research, how much research is going to be necessary to change these kinds of things? What solutions are possible? You talked about at one point toward the end about how much it costs us to do cleanup on this. And where's the data that says research is going to reduce that cost? We're going to be faced with this cost regardless if global climate change continues. So the notion that, I mean, in essence, when you talk about fossil fuels and the switch to alternative energies that are not as intensive in their use of carbon dioxides and other stuff, don't we already know that? How much more research do we need to know that says using coal is a bad idea for the environment? I'm not sure that more information on this is going to change anything. There's a whole assumption here that spending money on research is going to fix these problems, and that's the thing that I think is the biggest problem here. I thought you had pretty good information about the dangers to pollinating animals, although there is some link there to, I do think you need to have a little bit stronger link to climate change and the bees disappearing. It's very speculative at this particular point. The argument that they might change their migration patterns, I think that's a little bit clearer. That was pretty solid. All right, thank you.